Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Bollocks. Hello, yes, it is I, Howard H. Smith, your host. I am also known, as you know by now, as the lead singer of UK thrash band Acid Rain and the host of this here podcast. I do stand-up comedy as the character Keith Platt, and I also host the official Motorhead podcast, The Motorcast. Hello, welcome back, welcome for the first time, whoever you are, wherever you are, welcome to the wackiest heavy metal podcast there is. Oh yeah, hello, welcome, thank you for coming, nice to see you, how are you? How's your day been? How's your day gonna be? I would imagine it's all gonna be better than Dave Ellefson's day. That's right, we're going straight in to what's been happening in the world of metal, and it's Dave Ellefson being a little bit fruity with a young lady online, and it's all come out, if you pardon the expression. So, for those of you that don't know, this statement was released by Dave. And this is news coming quick off the press right now. This was all posted yesterday on Dave Ellefson's social media. As you may or may not know, some private and personal conversations and interactions have surfaced online, released with ill intention by a third party who was not authorised to have them or share them. While certainly embarrassing, I want to address it as openly and honestly as possible. As much as it's not something I'm proud of, these were private adult interactions that were taken out of context and manipulated to inflict maximum damage to my reputation and my career and family. The other party involved has made a statement which you can see below. I thank her for doing so and hope that this clarifies the situation was not all as presented. Humbly yours, Dave Ellefson. And the response, and here we go. In the statement Ellefson shared was apparently made by the other party involved, and the woman wrote, I'm the girl people are talking about in the post about Dave Ellefson right now, and I just want to tell my side of the story because people are sharing misinformation and the situation is getting out of hand without the truth being out there. Yes, those video calls did happen, but I was the one to initiate them, and never was I underage. I was also always a consenting adult. Nothing inappropriate ever happened before that. It was all consensual. I'm not a victim. I have not been groomed in the slightest. I was the one to initiate it. I was just naive enough to record him and share it with a friend without his permission. In the end, it was all consensual and online. Well, apart from sharing the video that clearly wasn't consensual. I don't know how it got to this point, but a lot of information is being left out by people purposely trying to harm him. I would ask that anyone sharing these personal private videos or any misinformation about them to please stop. Well, yes, I bet. And I would imagine Julie Ellefson, Dave's wife of 27 years, would be quite glad if he stopped, as well as Roman and Athena, their daughter and son. Sorry, yeah, that's the right way round. Sorry, son and daughter. Anyway, fucking hell. If you didn't know, that's what's been going on. Dave has been, not exactly playing away, but, digitally cheating. I'm going to say that. And I think it just proves that no matter how pious or religious people may be, a lot of them just go around and do whatever they like anyway. And then seek forgiveness. Better to seek forgiveness rather than permission. Right, guys and gals? Hey, clearly this isn't a grooming thing, and somebody has taken this article, which is quite salacious anyway, but they've used it to try and create as much damage to Dave Ellefson as possible. To be honest, the person who's created the most damage to Dave Ellefson here is Dave Ellefson being involved in anything like this to start with. It doesn't look like his position in the band is going to be under threat whatsoever. Basically the Megadeth statement, because there is a Megadeth statement, is we are aware of recent statements regarding Dave Ellefson and are watching developments closely. As it relates to creativity and business, we are familiar with one another. However, there are clearly aspects of Dave's private life that he has kept to himself. As this situation unfolds, it's important that all voices are heard clearly and respectfully. We look forward to the truth coming to light. So there, it stops short of defending Dave, and certainly leaves the door open for his exit. But I would say the jaws are the door is ajar, not the jaws ajar. That makes no sense. The door is ajar as regards his exit. I think really, depending on what happens over the next few days, we'll see. But I certainly think the message from that young lady certainly has a big effect in this. But then again, am I like most people? Really I'm focusing on the wrong thing here, focusing on the band Megadeth, because that's my skin in the game, like the band, known these people or known their music for years. But what you tend to forget is, actually, sod the band. There's human relationships in tatters here. As a wife of 27 years finding out about this, and it's bad enough finding out about this without the entire world and everyone you know finding out about it as well. So the humiliation is, Dave is clearly humiliated in this, but the person I really feel for is Julia Lefson, because this is, actually for Julie, Roman, and Athena. I have a slight bit of sympathy with Dave, because clearly there was nothing illegal going on here, but by the same token, it was badly judged, naive at best, really. You can't blame the person. I don't blame the young girl on the end of the phone. I don't blame the person she shared it with. This is the world we live in, and that is that. But yeah, poor old Julie, and maybe less attention on how this might affect Megadeth and more attention on how it might affect, the Elefson family is really what we should all be, looking at. So I guess, look, if you are a Lutheran pastor and you have been for a decade and you preach the words of the Lord, when something like this comes up, people are going to revel in your hypocrisy. That is without doubt. And normally that would be me, but to be honest, I'm feeling the need to just kind of rise above this a little, and really kind of feel for the family on this one. So sorry if you thought I was going to pile into Dave and make loads of jokes at his expense and slag off his religious beliefs and everything. Do you know what? I think he's got enough on his plate without me joining in. Not that like anyone cares whether I join in or not, but there you go. Oh, for fuck's sake, those bloody parakeets! Honestly. It's as if they don't know that I'm doing a podcast. Honestly, you green squawking bastards. Give it a rest. Anyway, moving on and carrying on with what's happened in the world of metal. And this has made me sad. Actress Tawny Kitaen, ex-wife of David Coverdale, dies at 59. She was the woman on the bonnet of the car in the iconic, for let's be honest, all the wrong reasons, all the 80s reasons, for Here I Go Again, that classic Whitesnake tune, eh? Here I go again on my own, going down the other road I've ever known. It's nothing like that, but you know what I mean. And for people of a certain age, she was the untouchably, amazingly gorgeous wife of David Coverdale and was coveted by many of us as teenage boys. I show my age, but that's just, that's the way it is. She was a proper fucking rock pin-up girl. And, back in the day when women were entirely judged on their appearances and their spouse. But it's just really sad. It is really sad because in my mind she is still in her 20s, writhing around on the bonnet of that car. And then you just see pictures of her just before her death, and here she's died, and it's all really sad. One thing I didn't know is that the original girl who was supposed to be riding around on the bonnet of that car was Claudia Schiffer. Well, there you go. And, well, I think her career worked out all right in the end as well. But there you go. Tawny Katane no longer with us. That is a shame. Moving on from that, right, Scott Rokenfield, yes, he, drummer of Queensryche, right? This is weird. He hasn't performed with them for more than 4 years, right? And he's put on his Facebook, ready, let's ready to fucking rock, I am, and there's posted queensryche2021.com, and if you go to queensryche2021.com, as I have, it says, welcome to the new world, join the Legion, and you put and you're supposed to put your email address in there, which I didn't do, and that's it. All you can do is enter your email address. So the drummer of Queensryche, who hasn't played in them for 4 years, has set up a website called Queensryche 2021, but there is already a Queensryche out there with Todd Latour on vocals. So what the fuck is going on? It's just utterly bizarre. I mean, like, you know, it just must be so weird being in Queensryche and suddenly waking up one morning and your drummer, who you haven't heard from for 4 years, has launched a website called Queensryche 2021. What the fuck am I supposed to do about that, thinks person in band? I genuinely don't know. So, next up, KK Downing. Yes, that's right, I haven't mentioned him for a while. His debut album is coming out. So, yeah, it's going to be called Sermons of the Sinner. As clearly reference to himself. KK's Priests consists of former Judas Priest members, KK Downing, that's a surprise, Tim Ripper Owens, and Les Binks, along with guitarist AJ Mills and bassist Tony Newton. Apparently, it's all going to pay homage to him and his years in Priest. Here's one for you, though. I really didn't realise this. Downing left Priest in 2011 amid claims of band conflict. That's right, folks. It's a decade. It's 10 years since Downing left Priest. I am absolutely amazed by that. Absolutely amazed. Oh, doesn't time fly? And lots of fucking bollocks that old people like me say. I'm just amazed. In 2019, Downing said he had reached out to Judas Priest about taking part in the band's upcoming 50th anniversary tour, but their response was that they were not interested in including him in the celebrations. In 2018, I've got to be honest, you know, you left in 2011, you did nothing but moan, and then you reach out 8 years after that and go, 50th anniversary, do you want me to come along? Oh, it's a no, is it? It's not a massive surprise, is it, really? It really isn't. But that's the thing I'm taking away from all of this. I mean, it's taken him 10 years to do anything musically. That's obviously kind of interesting. But also the fact that it's 10 years since he left Judas Priest, honestly. And people still refer to, like, you know, Richie Faulkner as the new guy. Mind you, some people still call Rob Trujillo in Metallica the new bassist. I mean, yeah, okay, whatever. Time keeps moving. And along with time, so does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Iron Maiden and Foo Fighters barely make top 5 in 2021 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction fan vote. Well, I'm sure they'll all be gutted, but ultimately, over to Bruce on this one. Bruce's quote was, here we go. He made the headlines in 2018 when he referred to the Rock Hall as an a complete load of bollocks during a spoken word gig in Australia. Well, obviously, that's right in my wheelhouse. If we're talking bollocks, we're talking the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're talking Bruce Dickinson, who I have indeed talked bollocks with on a couple of times, as you will know if you're a regular listener to the Bollocast. It's just like, does anyone really care? I mean, the bands don't seem bothered. There seems to be a real weirdness as regards the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like, some people seem, these bands must be in the Rock Hall of Fame, whereas others are like, well, who gives a shit? It's just basically been set up for people to make money from this thing called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It doesn't really, it doesn't really do anything. It doesn't achieve anything. no one's career is improved by it. It's a backslapping session. And, record companies, they like things like that. That's about it. That's really it. It's a record company dream. Oh, we can say our band's been inducted into the Rock Hall of Fame. Maybe we can, shift a few records off the back of it. Well, who cares? Clearly not Bruce Dickinson anyway. We've also got, and this is fascinating, right? Dino Canizares and this ongoing Fear Factory album that's been recorded for God knows how long. And the bit I want to pick up on, right, is this. Here we go. Obviously Burton C. Bell's left it, and all the rest of it. But Bell's exit from Fear Factory came more than 2 weeks after Dino Cazares, never been kind of sure how to pronounce his name, launched a GoFundMe campaign to assist him with production costs associated with the release of Fear Factory's long-awaited new LP. Now, the weird thing is that here is his description, right, in explaining starting the fundraising campaign, Cazares said all the donations would go towards covering newly incurred production costs involved with the making of the new album, including, get this, re-recording the drums, guitars, bass and keyboards, as well as production by Reno and Canizares and mixing and mastering by Sneap. Right, so costs involved there are basically re-recording the whole album, paying Reno, paying Andy Sneap, and by the looks of it, Cazares paying himself as well. Now, have you actually got an album if you include in your newly incurred production costs re-recording the drums, guitars, bass and keyboards? I mean, you haven't got an album. You've basically got a vocal track. That's it. You've got fucking Burton's vocals, and that's it. And then all you do is slag off Burton in every single article and interview that you get. Well, it's quite clear that he's the only thing that was actually worth keeping from the original recording of your new bloody album. I call it new. It was recorded in 2017, although it's going to be re-recorded with your money, if you choose to donate, over the next few months, years, whenever, and it'll eventually come out with 2017 vocals on it by Burton and newly recorded loads of rubbish by Dino. What the fuck? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I mean, the only thing I can think of is the producer, or possibly mixing and mastering me old mate Sneapy, has basically said, look, you need to re-record all this. It's not good enough. And there's definitely no way Burton's re-recording anything. So I've just got this image of Dino basically traipsing into the studio and re-recording all his guitars and going, fuck it, give me a bass. Re-record the bass. Fuck it, just get a drum machine on there. Save yourself some money. Stop hitting up people who are in, who are in the middle of a pandemic, and you want them to hand over money so you can re-record the album that you recorded in 2017. No, not happening. Dino, get a fucking hat, yeah? Find a pavement, sit on it, put the hat in front of you, get your guitar out, strum some tunes, do a bit of busking, and do it that way. Honestly, a GoFundMe campaign could you please fund me fucking up the recording of the album? That's what that is. I'm going to have to redo everything apart from the vocals. So can everybody pay to do that? Because I fucked up here. No, what it's called is, and again, I know I'm going off about this. Yeah, all right. All donations would go towards covering newly incurred production costs involved with the making of the new album, including re-recording the drums, guitars, bass and keyboards. How can re-recording all of the instruments be covered by the phrase newly incurred production costs? No, they are the production costs. But this makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Everybody's got to dip in their pocket so Dino can put a new album out. Because nobody else is bloody in the band. No one else is interested. What the fucking hell is that all about? That's absolutely ridiculous. Oh dear. Going to a record label. Yeah, can we have the budget for the album, please? Yeah, no worries. And then you just spunk that and you set up a GoFundMe campaign saying, we need some money for some newly incurred expenses. Oh, what are the newly incurred expenses? Well, actually recording the album, because we've spunked the whole fucking budget on fucking hookers and blow. Honestly, it's fucking believable. It really is. Anyway, I'm going to get off the Fear Factory tip. Here we go. I am giving you a brand new band, hopefully, this time around. This episode is all about the new EP from Blurred Reality. They are a band that was brought to my attention by one of their parents, who happens to be an Acid Rain fan, and they messaged me directly and said, hey, check this out. Now, I do get a fair amount of this kind of stuff, and to be honest, it's usually either not very good or just, not really my thing. But I'll always check out anything that I'm asked to. And in this case, I was asked to, so I checked it out, and straight off the bat, really, really liked the first single. And I was like, right, okay, so I got in touch. Would you mind coming on the show? And they were all like, yeah, man, no worries. So, I've got bassist and lead vocalist Crugeth. He's coming up with an interview. But first, I am going to put a track of the new EP. This is the opening track. This is the first track I heard from them. And after this, we'll be going straight into the interview. So, this is from the new EP by Blurred Reality. The song is called The End of Attrition. And before we go any further, just to let you know, the EP is called Molting, and it is due out on the 28th of this month. There is a link that you can use, which means you can save it on your Spotify list and everything else. But all the relevant links I will put in the description of this podcast so you can get stuck in. And here's the first track. Crugeth, welcome to Talking Bollocks. It's nice to have you on.
Thank you for having me.
Great EP, loving it, really enjoying it. And an unusual choice of lead single. How did that come about?
Oh, the single itself. Well, we always knew that was going to be the first one that was going to come out. It had to be. It's the first song in the actual EP itself as well, because I joined the band in June 2019, and initially what had happened was we were getting things together, and I had requested that I wanted to learn 2 of the songs that the band had already done previously, just to get into the style, get into the swing of things.
Yeah. And
then the single, The End of Attrition, was the first one we wrote together as a 3-piece. So it's got pretty much everything that we aim to be and that we want to be. So it was always, whenever we were gigging, we would always end with it, and whenever we were going to release, we always knew that was going to be like the flagship.
Right. Okay. So right from the get go, that was the clear motive. Was that's going to lead the way.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool that you sort of, you wanted to learn some old stuff, as it were. So had the band been going long before you joined them?
They started maybe about 2 years-ish before I had joined, and they went through a lot of lineup changes, and from what I understand, the other members would probably be able to recount this better, but from what I understand, it was just Rory, our guitar player, and Cameron, the drummer, left, who were the only 2 original members as well. So they were sort of thinking, we'll just give it one last shot, see if it works, and then if it doesn't, we'll just get out of here. And they put up a post on social media that I happened to see, just looking for a bass player. And at the time, I didn't really play bass, but I played guitar, so I thought I could play bass, and it ended up being a lot harder than I thought it would be. But they had a lot of the same influences I did, so they're in the same area as me as well, so I was like, I'd be kind of stupid to pass this up, and it just ended up being really a great thing straight out off the bat.
That's interesting, because you're taking on a new instrument and singing at the same time. How did that go down?
Well, I was already singing. Initially, it was just on bass, and Rory was the singer. But over time, we discussed, because I had been singing sort of acoustic stuff beforehand, and it was I thought I would just try it, and it ended up working, and everyone enjoyed it and felt good about it. So we just continued to do that, although it is a pain in the arse, to say the least. I thought playing guitar and singing was hard, but bass is just a whole different ballgame. But it's good. It's good to have that sort of challenge as well, because it keeps it interesting.
Yeah, and have you found you're having to musically approach stuff differently from being because obviously the role of a bass and the role of guitar are completely different.
Sometimes, a lot of times, if there's parts where maybe I'm not singing, I would maybe try and do some slightly more interesting things on the bass, just from that perspective, but only really if the song needs it. I'm never looking to go overboard, especially because that's more guitar department and drums as well. Bass is kind of just there to glue everything together. So I like to do sort of more interesting things sometimes, but I don't like to take the piss, really.
Yeah, and being a 3-piece, that would be noticeable, like, straight away.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's a big thing live. We try to sound as big as we can live, but we know in the studio we can put more rhythm guitars and stuff on, but we always like to make sure that we can get the sound that we want by putting as many layers as we want in the studio, but when it comes to live, it has to still be able to work. So there's trying to find a dynamic that works both ways.
Yeah.
That we can have something that sounds like there's maybe 4 or 5 members on the recorded version, but it's not gonna sound too empty whenever it comes to playing it live.
Yeah, and that, but that's, look, that's if you're a 4-piece or a 3-piece, that is something that will. I mean, what sprung to mind is that's a conversation I had with Andreas Kisser of Sepultura last year when I was chatting to him. And, that same question came up about, recreating it live without an extra guitarist. It's always going to be there, but you like, obviously you're just aware of it and you try and work around it.
Yeah, at the minute we're, without going into too much detail because the others might kill me, but we're writing new stuff to hopefully go and record again. But there's been a few times where things have come up and we've been like, well, let's do this whenever we come to record it. And then one of us has gone, how the fuck are we going to do that live? And then the rest of us are just going, well, we don't have to worry about that yet, so fuck it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's kind of like, let's do it and then figure out how we're going to do it live later.
Cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. And also, especially when you're putting an album together, I think there's always one or two songs where even as they're coming together, or or as you get towards the end of it, in the back of your mind, you know that you're probably never going to play this live. Yeah.
There's one of those songs in the EP that it's a bit of a softer track, and as much as we all love it and would like to play it live, we don't think we're ever going to get the chance to. Maybe down the line, but it doesn't look like it's going to transpire. But you never know.
Yeah. You want people down the front going crazy as opposed to sitting in a circle and swaying side to side.
Yeah, absolutely. Although that's never a bad thing, flashlights in the air, lighters, whatever.
Yes. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. Well, look, just doing a gig right now would be a fucking start, wouldn't it?
That would be fantastic. I would be happy to play 2 songs at a Christian function and go home.
Yeah. Yeah, that sums it up nicely. I think I'm pretty much in agreement with that.
Yeah.
So had you been in a 3-piece before?
No, this is my first band actually. Yeah.
Oh, really?
I started playing guitar just over 5 years ago, and always my thing was I want to start a band. I always wanted to start a band, but there was never the people. There was a guy that I played drums with for a while, but he was always too busy to be doing like a band or anything, which I understood. And then I just still wanted to be doing something.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Trivium fan, so I see all these things that Matt Heafy's doing. He's doing all the streaming. He does all these acoustic versions of sometimes heavier songs. And I was like, I could just do that. So I started just doing acoustic versions of songs that I liked, and then writing my own songs that were acoustic, but they had sort of like the heavy metal kind of twang, or if you want to call it that, to it.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I started busking just in my local town just to make a bit of money, and it helped me sort of develop my voice a lot more and develop, just people skills and performance skills in general.
Yeah.
And then eventually, whenever it came to the point of joining the band, it was like my voice had been developed to a point where I felt comfortable singing in front of people when I never even thought I was going to be able to sing at all. And I wasn't afraid as well, because I'm standing there in front of people that I've never met before playing songs. You have to you have to learn to kind of zone out and not care that there's going to be people that think you're shit. And so whenever it comes to playing gigs, finally with the band, it means I'm able to put all that energy and experience in, and actually, because it's really useful in metal in particular, because it's very high energy music, be able to put all that experience into putting on a show, essentially, is,
yeah,
the point, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and look, vocally, I'm jealous. You've got a great tone.
Thank you very much.
And I think a unique sounding voice for that kind of music. In fact, you remind me of a previous 3-piece that I have loved in years gone by called Reuben. Have you ever heard any?
No.
Oh, right. Well, funnily enough, have you ever heard any Days of the New?
No, haven't, no.
Right, okay. Well, I'm going to send you after this interview, I'm going to send you a link to Reuben, and I'm going to send you a link to Days of the New, because Days of the New is heavy acoustic stuff.
Okay, awesome.
There is the whole album, is acoustic. They supported Metallica in the early 2000s because Lars Ulrich absolutely loved them. And it's like unplugged Alice in Chains. It's fucking great.
Okay, awesome.
And I'm going to send you some Ruben because there's bits of Blurred Reality that remind me of Ruben. But anyway, look, that aside, it sounds like this has been a really sort of just organic process. You kind of, like you said, you'd always had in your mind of forming a band, and then all of a sudden joining one comes along, and it's I hate to say it, but it sounds like fate, doesn't it? It really is the way you
Don't
guys.
Don't even get me started. Because particularly there was our guitarist Rory. We obviously I didn't know these guys at all before joining the band, so it took a bit of time. Even though everything, from a songwriting perspective and a musical perspective, was all very quick, it still took us a while to all get comfortable with each other and form a really good bond. And again, like fate as well, I was in a course doing music and then moved on in the same college to do a higher course. And it just so happened that Rory, our guitarist, was also doing the same course.
Right.
So we started the course, and obviously there was a few times where we were like, let's go out for a drink or whatever. And we kept talking about all these times that basically everything just leading up and talking about it as fate. And now every time near enough that we get drunk, we always talk about, here, do you remember all these things led up to this one thing happening? If one of them things didn't happen, we wouldn't be here. And it's kind of true. I don't really believe in fate or anything, but it is kind of strange and almost supernatural in a way, in a funny sort of way, that it all transpired like that.
That it is funny. It is weird, without a doubt. But you know what? This is what happens. This is how it works. This is how you end. This is how you end up in a position whereby, you're in a band with somebody. It's very rare that everything comes together, and there's always like little bits and pieces here and there, and I know from forming and reforming a new band under the old logo. It's amazing how these things happen, and you find people, and you just gel. And honestly, the three of you just obviously musically you really work, but also it's the blending of styles is really interesting, which is something. I mean, I've played your stuff to a few people I know and respect their opinions, and the one thing that's come up from several people who've only heard the lead single, but they all said really interesting mix of styles and like the way it was done. Is that I'm being a musician myself, I'm thinking that is basically that's just how it happened, as opposed to, oh yeah, let's do this or let's do that. It's just ended up like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. We're never thinking, oh, we should do this, and this. It's always, someone will come with a bit of a song, and then we'll all come out of it at the end with a song. But obviously we all have interconnecting influences. Like there's bands that we all like. You like to see your Metallica, Avenged Sevenfold, all sorts of bands. But then we obviously have our own bands that we all listen to individually, but maybe the other ones in the band wouldn't be as into. So I'm into sort of my like prog rock. I like Pink Floyd, a band called Lepers from Norway, and things like that, and Silosis, a thrash band, Architects as well. Rory would be into sort of some other rap stuff, and the Foo Fighters and things like that. And then Cameron is really into the Beatles and Tool and Queen. So I feel like it all, for all of us, we like all sorts of different things, but we also, our main thing is we love metal. So it all kind of seeps in, whether we like it or not, and for better or for worse. And I think I think a lot of times whenever our outside of metal influences come through, we don't notice until someone else points it out, and then we're like, oh shit, okay. So it is purely accidental, but we're very glad that it happens that way, because it gives us that sense of uniqueness, because I think you'll probably know yourself, being a musician, that, well, I find anyway, that my constant fear is that everything I write sounds the same, or that everything I write sounds like something that's been done before. So whenever someone tells us, they're like, essentially that they value it and they really like it, it means a lot to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And also I think that my biggest fear is, picking up on what you said there, my biggest fear is repeating yourself.
Yeah.
Because that means that you've got stuck in, you've got stuck down an alleyway somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I sometimes I'll just be sitting messing around on a guitar or whatever, and I'll write a riff, and I'll get too bogged down with the sense that it sounds too similar to something I've written before. So then I'll try to change it, and then by the time I've changed it, it's just turned into something that's I don't feel very good about. So it's a fine line to cross, where it's like, I don't want to sound too similar to what I've done before, but I also don't want to fuck this up so much that I can't use it at all. So it can be difficult, to say the least.
Yes. Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. And but that's the challenge as well, though, isn't it? You if you are constantly trying to keep an eye out for stuff like that, that's part of the journey. That is part of the discipline that you need to basically keep trying to better yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's all there. I feel like on some level, if you're not afraid of those things, then you're more likely to sort of let them happen without realizing it, and then it can be kind of detrimental. So it's just I think that all artists throughout, whether it be drawings, paintings, music, whatever, photography even, those are the sorts of things that artists in general will always look out for. It's how they're able to adapt and grow and change and learn new things. So yeah, it is, and ultimately that's what's going to keep you. That's what's going to keep you alive, and interested as as a musician. Yeah, I mean, being a three-piece as well, that is, you create a hell of a noise for a three-piece. We try our best.
Yeah, absolutely. But I saw a bit of live footage, and I was really surprised to see how metal your influences are, because you broke out For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Absolutely.
And I mean that's hilarious. We used to play For Whom the Bell Tolls as well back in the day, and it's I don't know. It's kind of like a rite of passage. Do you know what I mean? It's a classic, and it's kind of not too hard to play and gets everybody going.
It's easy enough to play, and if you're playing, especially in the proper, like a metal venue where you've got a proper metal audience, even if you have an audience that they know metal but they're not too deep into it, for some reason everybody knows For Whom the Bell Tolls on some level. Maybe they've seen Zombieland and they remember it from the start, but they can't quite remember where they've heard it before. Everyone knows it, and Metallica in general is one of those bands where, like, if you're a metal band, you have to cover one of their songs at some point. It's like, Black Sabbath as well. There's so many bands I could think of that they've covered Black Sabbath at some point.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, as you say, it's like a rite of passage, really.
Yeah, it is. And but again, it's kind of like, you're definitely not a sort of traditional sounding metal band. And it's kind of weird as well, because I mean, the lead single, for instance, you start out, you start out with speed metal, and you end up kind of quite a far away from it. But it doesn't seem forced or jarring. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you hear this kind of stuff and you think, oh, what are these lot doing?
Yeah. I agree, and that back to that whole thing of like, fear when it comes to it. It's like we were writing that song, and at the very start of it, it's this really clean intro, and at the time whenever we were writing it, it didn't start. It just started straight into that like the gallopy riff, and it was like that up until like the last chorus, where in the final song it goes back into that again. That was just it. It was just that. But then I came back one day and I was like, this needs something else. This needs like an intro. And I played that thing on the bass. It's sort of like a loungy vibe, everyone's told us. And I kind of get what they mean. But I brought that in, and it was based on the chords that play in the verse. So I was trying to connect it to the rest of the song, so it didn't just feel as if it was taped on. Because if it had just been its own chord progression or whatever, it would have might not have felt as natural or proper. But I can't remember what I was talking
about. We started. Well, you went back there. You took us back there. It was about fear.
Yes, fear. Yeah. So
I've put you on the spot there, haven't I? It's like, yeah, that's not really helping, is it?
No. See, I do this all the time. I have this thing where I'll be talking to people just in the day-to-day life, and I'll go off on a tangent, and then I'll stop for a couple of seconds and be like, I haven't a fucking clue where I started.
Oh, mate.
How I got here.
Dude. That has been, you've just summed up my entire life. I know exactly what you mean. And far be it from me to make a COD diagnosis from all of that. I eventually got diagnosed with ADHD. So if you're a bit jumpy and hyperactive, it might be something you want to look into.
Right, dude. You know what? I've thought about it, but as well.
Yeah, I mean, it never crossed my mind to even look into it until someone said something to me a few years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if I." And then I did a bit of research online, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this answers a lot of questions I've always had."
See, sometimes I'll get curious. I'll just be sitting in the house on a Friday night, bored, and I'll go and have a look at like ADHD symptoms or whatever, and then I'll be looking at the checklist. I'll be like, yeah, no, wee bit. Yeah. And I was like, maybe I do. And then I'll do one of those tests, and I'll get halfway through the test and get bored and go, this is what something like ADHD would do. They get bored halfway through.
Yes, yeah, so. Exactly. When I got my diagnosis, I went in with 40 pages of notes that you have to print off, and you have to tick boxes. And I was tempted to arrive with all 40 sheets blank and just go, I've got ADHD, and here's the proof. There's no way I could fucking do that.
You have to do it in installments, 10 pages at a time, maybe even 5.
Oh, mate, that's exactly what I had to do. I just had to do them because you just lose interest so quickly.
Yeah.
And that's classic. But that's also ADD. That's attention deficit disorder, and then you've got ADHD, which is just throwing hyperactive in there as well, which makes the ADD work because you're already finding things difficult to be interested in, and then you've got hyperactivity as well going, oh yeah, but we could go over there now.
Yeah.
So
that's my thing. If I'm at a party or whatever, I can't stay in the same room for too long. Say if it's like a big house party,
yeah,
I always have to be moving around.
Yes,
because there's always, you probably know yourself, at house parties there's always different environments going on. So I'll spend 10, 15 minutes in the living room talking to people, and then I'll be looking around and go, right, well, let's go to the kitchen, see what the crack is there.
Yeah.
Go into the kitchen, and then I'll see what people are doing upstairs, and then there'll be people all over the place, and then I'll make my way around the house maybe 5 or 6 times the whole night, and that'll be me content.
Yeah, do you know what? This is exactly the same as me at a gig. You ask any of the band, and it's like, oh, where's H? Don't know. When did you last see him? Oh, he was there. It's like that's me. The last thing I'm going to do is like sit in the dressing room. I'm just going to be just dotting about all over the place.
Yeah, sometimes you'll be in the crowd talking to someone, go to the bar, talk to someone,
Yeah.
go to the smoking area, maybe talk to about 3 or 4 people, and then make your way around again.
Yeah, that is exactly what I do, and I've always thought it's because on, like, you know, by the time we get to a venue and all the rest of it, the adrenaline's not pumping yet, but it is I am kind of like on, as it were. You know, I'm in gig mode. But funnily enough, you talking about it about house party, and I'm thinking, yeah, do you know what? That is exactly what I used to do when I used to go to a lot of house parties, which, to be honest, is a while ago. But I absolutely get it. Yeah, that is the old just wandering, because you just constantly need a top up of engagement. And it's like, after you've been in a room for 10 or 15 minutes, and it's like, as part of your brain just goes, okay, well, you've spoken to everybody in here, now to go and speak to everybody in another room.
Yeah.
It's like you're on this weird quest, this competition with yourself.
A quest, a competition with yourself that really, there's no prize.
Yeah.
It resets every time you make a round of the house.
Yeah, it's ultimately, it's the law of diminishing returns, and it's there's no satisfaction in the end. At no point do you go, right, I've completed the party, I've completed the guests. Do you know, I can leave now. It's not that kind of thing. It is just, I think, like you said, you know, it's constantly trying to remain engaged at a high level, and you're in the ideal role in the band, mate. You really are, because you are absolutely front and center of of every song. From a bass playing point of view, I'm interested, because you were playing guitar up to that point. Have you started sort of dipping into bass players at all and listening, or are you just approaching things from your own point of view?
Well, I always like to, whenever I'm listening to music, I always like to pick apart what everybody's doing in the band. So, like, funny enough, before I started playing guitar, the reason I wanted to pick up an instrument at all was from watching drummers. I was watching drummers and the way they would hit things, and up until I started, like, paying attention to music, I never realised they used their feet, and I thought that was the best thing in the world. But I never wanted to play drums, but there was something about watching people play drums that made me go, I want to do something with this world of stuff. And so I'm always picking apart when I'm listening to stuff, you know, drum parts, and then the next time I listen to it, I'll be listening to the bass and the tone and stuff like that. In terms of actual, like, bass players, I've never really got into any for some reason, because they're there to be the foundation of the band, but usually they're not front and center in the same way that a front man would be.
Yeah.
I can't really think of that many bands where the front man would be a bass, like Slayer. Was one of them?
Yeah. Well, Rush.
Rush, yes.
Yeah.
There is a few, but I couldn't really think of them. I mean, I don't really listen to any.
Yeah.
But in terms of bass players that I try to lean into, obviously I play with a pick because I'm a guitar player.
Yeah.
You know, so I never wanted to try and do all this crazy mad shit with my fingers. I thought it would just take too long. I was like, I'll just stay in my comfort zone as far as this goes. I'm already picking up a new instrument. I'm not trying to, you know, turn myself into some kind of machine. But big influences in terms of, like, a picked bass playing, got to be Dave Ellefson from Megadeth and Newstead from his time in Metallica.
Yeah. Big
fan indeed.
Well, probably
and then bass playing in general, like John Mayung from Dream Theater, is just a fucking powerhouse. Like,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Phenomenal.
And that's interesting, because you've obviously got a wide influences of metal in your influences. Is that where, you know, because all three of you obviously are into metal to varying degrees.
Yeah.
So, you know, who's bringing the other influences, or is it just things that happen as you're jamming?
Just happens, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of in the early days, it would have been, a lot of our writing was done in the room, but it's just generally what will happen is someone brings a riff or like a half-finished song, and then if it's Rory, for example, he will teach me how to play the song that he's playing, and then I'll just add in wee bits in terms of the bass playing that maybe I think would fit. And if I'm singing over that part, if I can add something that feels appropriate, then I will. And then with the drums, Cameron just does it all himself for the most part. Excuse me. The odd time we'll give him ideas or whatever, or he'll give us 2 different beats for one section, and we'll all do a vote on which beat we like better. But for the most part, he's just doing it all himself. And then a lot of the times from the bass playing again, it'll be me paying attention to what he's doing on the drums and then trying to mimic that in some sort. And in the same way, glue the guitars and the drums together in that way. But as I said before, we're never like we have to do this or we have to draw inspiration from this band. A lot of times, actually, if one of us turns around and goes, has an idea for something, maybe not everybody's on board. They'll like maybe say, well, this band done this, but sometimes we have to turn around and go, well, we're not that band, we're this band.
Yeah.
So trying to do things in a unique way, but obviously still taking inspiration.
Yeah, and I think also, it's that point, where someone says, yeah, but we're not that band. It's that point where you kind of draw a line of what you're trying to incorporate into your music, and that's what creates your sound. That's what creates, who you are.
Yeah, but that's another thing as well. And back to fear, and I'll try not to forget what I'm talking about this time. But but it's that thing of like, there's always that thing in the back of everybody's head where nobody wants to be a copycat. And another thing that I'm not sure about the other guys, but I'm sure we all feel this to varying degrees, is that none of us want to be known as a rip-off band.
Yeah.
Originality is important to you.
Very important, yeah.
Yeah, and that's probably what drew me to, I was going to say that's what drew me to the band in the first place, but it wasn't. It was a message from, I'm guessing, one of your parents.
Yes, that would have been, I think, Rory's dad, Colin. Shout out to Colin.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Shout out without a doubt, because obviously he introduced me to you guys, and it was really nice. He just sent a message over and just said, like, check this out. And obviously I did. And like I said, what caught my ear was the mixing of styles, and which straight away struck me as, original. It's a very oddly arranged song. It's kind of backwards, because it's like, you actually expect 2.5 or 3 minutes of instrumentation, maybe play out with that, and the bulk of the song at the start. Whereas you've fucked with that a bit, and I was like, right, this is interesting, originality is what, for me, what always appeals. The last thing I want to be thinking is, oh, that sounds like so-and-so, or I've heard this before. I just shut down really quickly then.
Yeah. We try to avoid that as much as possible, because not only do we know that other people aren't going to be turned on to that, but for us personally, like, whenever we make a song, and especially with like the music that we're releasing at the minute, we want to be able to listen to it, and unless we feel comfortable with listening to it ourselves, then there really would be no point in putting it out. And so we have to make something that we like hearing, and at the same, on the same level. If it sounds like something we've heard before, then it could be that sense of like, well, what's the point in doing it? What's the point in listening to it? So there always has to be that kind of originality. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily feel pointless, but maybe just doesn't feel like we've done all that we can.
Yeah, and it, like I was saying earlier, it's who you are. It creates your sound, and that's always been my kind of feeling about music as well. But ultimately, there is, everyone has different reasons for doing what they're doing, and I just think it's originality is what keeps everything moving. You know, that's what keeps genres from sterilizing. You know, I mean, that's kind of what happened with thrash metal back in the day, where it kind of just ground to a halt through a sheer lack of innovation, if anything else.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it has to be engaging and interesting for us, and also for the listener. But at the end of the day, we try to put ourselves first, because whenever we're not making music, that's what we are. We're the listener, just for other bands.
Yes.
So it's just primarily, at the end of the day, whenever it comes to a song, it's like, would we listen to this? And if the answer is yes, then put it out. And then if somebody else wants to listen to it and somebody else enjoys it, then fucking happy days.
Yeah,
you know?
but you're absolutely right. That is the only reason to put it out there. You know, rather than, you know, I'm so tired of the old, we just make music for ourselves, and if anyone else likes it, that's a bonus. And it's like, no, that's bollocks.
Yeah.
You know, nobody wants to put an album out that everyone goes, meh, not really. Oh, well, you're just making music for yourselves, so you're not bothered, presumably. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to, you know, have their music listened to and to get good feedback. That's part of the ego of the musician, of the, you know, the human being. Of course, everybody prefers this, you know, praise to criticism. And you know, and that's what you want. You want people to listen to your music, but it is a case of putting yourself first. But also, I think, and I learned this through God knows how many years of doing comedy as well, which is, you just have to stick to your guns. If you think something is really good and you've got something, then you just have to stick to it and go for it. You can't be second guessing yourself, and there's no point, you know, asking people and going, well, what do you think? And what do you think? You've just got to go with your feelings and trust your own feelings that something is as good as you think it is.
Yeah. And sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're like, well, maybe we kind of missed the mark with that. But you know what? Leading up to the release, we kept listening to the recordings and going, oh shit, if I was doing it again, I'd go back and change that. But see, now that the singles come out, our manager and friend, we just call him Foy or Big Foo, he pointed out that, like, it sounds so much more satisfying to listen to now that's out, because we know we can't change it now. Yeah. And so we're not listening to it in the perspective of, oh, should have done that, or should have done this, or maybe should have took that out or added this. We're just looking at it now as if, okay, that's the way it is, and being happy with it, really.
Well, believe you me, mate, it's never finished. It's just abandoned.
Oh yeah.
You know, you just get to a point where you go, right, okay, that's it, because you have to.
Yeah.
And I recognize all those feelings, and ultimately, once it's out, you know, before we put our album out, end of 2019, I was saying to everybody in the last month before it came out, I said, look, just enjoy this next month with the album, yeah, because in a month's time, it's no longer yours. Yeah, it's the property of everybody who listens to it, and you know, this is the last chance you're going to be able to listen to it without anybody else's opinion being triggered when you hear a certain point of a song and you think, oh, you know, read that in an interview or read that in a review or whatever. It's yours until you release it, and then it's everybody else's.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, because that's just the way of it. It's owned then by the universe once it's put out, because it's that thing of, like, you can listen to it however many times you want. You've got the inside information. You know how it was written. You know where it came from, emotionally and musically and whatever. But once it's out there, the perspective can probably change on it to.
Oh yeah.
Because once you start hearing the opinions come in, you start pairing it up with things that maybe you already thought about before, and you're going, oh yeah, well, you think of it that way, and that kind of is similar to what we were trying to do, or maybe that's similar to something we were trying to avoid, and then obviously the most important thing for us about criticism is taking it and learning from it for next time, because obviously we're still, make no mistake, we're still fucking early days as a band, and so we're, as much as we really love all the compliments and everything, we just hope just as much that people, are honest as well as supportive, because obviously anything that is, a lot of people can't take criticism well, but any sort of criticism is always going to be something we can draw from and learn from, and try and implement that in the future without taking away from our own personal vision.
Right, let me just stop you there, because I think that there's criticism and there's constructive criticism and all the rest of it, but ultimately, you're going to hear from people about what they think songs are about the lyrics musically, and you'll be thinking, right, okay, well they've seen some influences there that we don't have, or none of us like said band, but it's cool that they think that, and like I said, especially with lyrics, people will apply their own narrative to your lyrics, so it doesn't really matter what you've written it about. People will apply their own narrative anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. I mean, see, lyrics is the thing we take the least, we put the least effort into, not in a bad way, in the sense of like, we just throw them on at the end, but it's more in a sense of, we're more dedicated to the music and the melodies and stuff like that, but from a lyrical perspective, it is generally the thing that's done last, but we do still put a good bit of effort in it, and mostly it is our own experiences. Now, we do it, I'm not sure, really. Well, I know there's a lot of bands would maybe do it this way, but in terms of local bands, it generally would be, there's only like one or two maybe lyricists in the band, but for us, all three of us contribute.
Wow, right. Okay, lyrics by committee. This is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So on the EP, there's 6 songs, and the singles, both of them, I wrote the lyrics for those. So the current one and the next one, that may or may not be coming out, and I may have just said something I'm not supposed to say there, but fuck it. And then the other 4 songs are, again, 2 of them are by Rory and the other 2 are by Cameron lyrically. So we split it up, and it's a lot of it is just, whenever I write a song personally or write the bulk of a song, generally it'll be me that wants to write for it. And whenever we have the structure down, we're not too bogged down by lyrics, but we'll always have a brief conversation of like, right, who wants to do this one? If someone's going through some shit, then they'll be like, okay, I would maybe want to take this one, just because obviously that's, as an artist, lyrics are just poetry, and poetry for a lot of people is just getting your expression out, and if you're going through some shit, just putting it down on paper can sometimes make it that bit easier to deal with. So it's a mixed bag. Everyone contributes, and then if somebody wants to do it for a specific song, maybe they've got a vision of the the phrasing or the melodies, they'll work away and do that. But for me, even though it's the thing we put the least effort into, and because it is always up for interpretation anyway, I've still got this, again, fucking fear. Well, that's the theme of the podcast, is fear. Of like, I'm afraid of it sounding like fucking gibberish, because recently we have a few new songs that we're working on. One of them I tried to write lyrics for, but I was just trying to put words, just out of nowhere, and then I came back to it a couple of weeks later, and I was like, I can't even make up what I think that means, so I just scrapped the whole fucking thing, and then came back again with sort of similar themes, and then tried to rewrite it again, and I'm happy with the way the lyrics are sitting now. But it's just that thing of like, even though I know that someone is going to interpret their own way, and that's completely fine, that's what you want anyway, I can't personally be happy with a set of lyrics if they just don't mean anything.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
If they don't mean anything, then maybe somebody might not be able to draw any meaning from it. even if it's a different meaning that it's supposed to be.
Well, yeah, and also I think you've just you've conquered your fear as well, because when you went down the route of just, look, I just need to get some words down for now, and then you went back to it and went, yeah, this is a load of bollocks, I need to start again. Well, there you go. You know, you've identified that, you know, that worry and that fear, and by the sounds of it, it's not going to be a problem, because you identified it and went, yeah, this isn't happening, and I need to scrap them and start again, which is exactly what you did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fascinating way of working. The fact that three of you share the lyrics, but I think that is also going to lead to again, that kind of is from my perspective. I think that's really original, because I don't know many bands where, you know, lyrically it's shared around, and that's fantastic, because that can only contribute to the unique nature of the band.
Yeah, because even now, like looking at the songs in the EP, for pretty much all of the songs, all the ones that I didn't write, the only thing that I know them to be about is my own, again, interpretation of them, because maybe, even though we're all close friends, sometimes just people just generally don't want to reveal what the songs are about, and that's fine, because it's just their way of getting that out. But it's nice that, even, again, from the perspective of a listener, that we can listen to the songs that the other person wrote and have our own view on what they mean and take our own meaning from that. And again, it's a good dynamic, I think, the way the three of us work.
I was just thinking that. I was thinking that must be really cool. And also, I mean, from an interview perspective as well, I think it's kind of cool where somebody might say, "Oh, you know, what's this song about?" And you say, "Well, you need to speak to the drummer, or you need to speak to the guitarist, you know, about that." Which again, you know, I think is really cool. And I mean, I tend not to break it down for people anyway, because I think, well, I can tell you what the song was about from my point of view when I wrote it. Yeah. But then somebody reading this interview or listening to the interview is going to go, "Oh, is that what it's about? I'm wrong," or it's going to take away from the interpretation they already have. So I prefer just to leave it kind of unexplained, really. Yeah,
I think generally wouldn't get many people asking what the lyrics are about, but any time they would, I would always like my answer to be, "Well, you tell me." You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
And I think that don't worry, that day is coming where people are going to be asking you about the lyrics, because the minute the EP comes out, you just watch. But also it's a really lazy question that rears its ugly head in interviews when you've got an album out and you're doing a load of interviews and people say, "Oh, so, you know, tell us what the lyrics to this song are about," or "Tell us what the lyrics are about in the album." I just think it's a really fucking lazy question.
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
Because you're not saying, you know, "All right, you know, what are these chord progressions like," and blah, and it's just it is lazy, because ultimately everyone decides what they're about.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll be happy to tell. I'm not gonna go on a whole big spiel if somebody asks me. I'm not gonna be like, "Right, but this line here," you see those, we call it like the Genius videos, and they'll have artists come on and they'll explain their entire song line by line.
Yeah.
Fair enough, I get that people are interested in that, but for me it's like, I'll give you a general overview of what the song's about, but at the end of the day, the song is about what you perceive it to be about. Like, for example, the single, it's about feelings of isolation and feeling trapped in your own head and stuff like that, and it progresses from the start to the end. The start of the song is being trapped, and then by the end of it, the narrator, if you want to call it that, has broken free and is out and has realised that the keys to breaking out, they had the tools to break out within their own head the whole time. But at the same time, if somebody wants to listen to those lyrics and take something completely different out of it, then that's what it means.
Just people showing an interest in your band, whether it's, you know, musically, lyrically, whatever. It's got to be a buzz for you, and having the video out there and the EP to come. This is an exciting time.
It is, yeah. It's honestly great. The song came out at the time of recording, it came out 2nd of April, which was just Friday, which almost a week ago, and we're already at just over 1,000 streams, which for a band, first release is pretty good. And obviously, there's been some interest with people, sharing the song about, and obviously this podcast is another thing that's been really great.
Cool.
To come on and just talk about it, and we're all very excited for where things are going in the future, and we've got a lot of things planned in the pipeline. We're constantly, it's all about work ethic for us. We're always trying to stay busy in some way.
Yeah. So how's the pandemic for you then?
Surprisingly productive. At the very start, well, we were meant to go into the studio where we recorded that this time last year, and then Boris and, well, obviously over here it'd be Arlene Foster turned around and said, "Nah, you can stay in the fucking house, son."
Yeah.
So that got pushed to July, and then we eventually got our mixes back, but we didn't want to just bung them out straight away. Because we wanted to put a bit more force behind the production aspect, or not the promotion aspect of things, because that's just as important as your release, because otherwise the release means nothing if it hasn't been promoted, nobody's listening to it.
Absolutely.
So we put a lot of effort into, we started selling some merch over the summer. We done some t-shirts, they've done really well. We recently released some hoodies just there on Monday. They've been doing quite well. Just trying to do stuff all the time, and then once we were finally allowed to play together again, we started getting new songs together. The only real downside, I think, apart from not being able to play gigs, but in terms of the things that we're able to do, the only real downside is that we're not writing songs together really anymore. It'll be somebody will come to the band with pretty much, a full song, fully structured and whatever, which isn't the worst thing, but it means that there's less room for, someone to just bring the one riff and then would come out of practice that day with a near full song. And obviously that will come back eventually, and we're still really enjoying the songs that we're playing and writing at the minute, but it has kind of lost that flavour in a sense because of the pandemic. But we're hoping with, vaccines and stuff rolling out that we'll be able to get to more regular stuff like that soon. And, whenever we get back to gigging, hopefully very soon, we'll have a bit more variety of songs to play as well, rather than it won't just be the EP. There'll be some new stuff and maybe some different covers or whatever. So we're always planning ahead for the future, but at the same time trying to work hard now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what you might find as well is that the songs that you've written whilst you're apart, you might find that once you get back in the room together and you start playing them, you'd be like, hang on, when we get to this part, it just feels like we should be doing this. We should be going somewhere like this as opposed to where it's going now. Do you know what I mean?
There's always room for suggestions and stuff, and that's what does keep it interesting as well, even when someone's came in with a full song. Yeah,
exactly. It's demos, isn't it? And ultimately, you go from demos to pre-production, which is like, you demo the song and you go, right, and what have we learned by putting what we've written down recorded? Well, now we've heard it like this. Do we, that needs to change, and you start breaking the song down again, / pre-production before it becomes sort of set in stone and ends up being recorded.
Yeah, it's all well and good playing it. Everyone's learning the song together and then playing it as a three-piece. But once you start getting the demos down and you then are listening to it back without the perspective of you've got the instrument in your hands, you're listening to it put down, and you go, you can always add things or take things or change things. So we're starting. Well, really shouldn't. Fuck it. I'm gonna get in trouble. Maybe I don't know if I will get in trouble, but fuck it. Starting some pre-production soon for a batch of things.
That's great. That's great, man. And look, putting it out there, like you said, at this stage, and for people to know that there's a new EP dropping any minute, and we should probably do the housekeeping now as well. So when does the EP drop?
The EP Molting comes out Friday the 28th of May on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music, anywhere that you find music in the year of 2021.
Cool. And you've got the video at the moment up for The End of Attrition.
Yes.
Cool. And where can people find you guys to follow you?
We're mostly active, Facebook and Instagram, and we're trying to get some more video, digital content up on, YouTube. We're working on that at the minute. So
yeah.
We're on YouTube and Facebook just as Blurred Reality, so give us a like, subscription, whatever. And then you can also find us on Instagram as well, where we would put a lot of other stuff up. Blurred Reality Official on Instagram.
Yeah, and I've funnily enough, I followed your Twitter account today.
Oh yes, we're on Twitter. I forgot about that. Cameron looks after that because I don't have Twitter myself. You see, so I always forget.
Right. Okay. Well, he's he's doing a good job there. But obviously, anyone listening to this, go and follow guys on Twitter. Well, look, Crugeth, it's been great, and I'll have you on again when we've got some stuff coming out in the future as well.
Awesome.
And I'm just going to have a quick word with you as well. But so don't go anywhere. But thank you very much for coming on and doing the interview. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me.
And there you go. That was an interview that I really enjoyed, as you can tell. And also, Crugeth did get into Days of the New, or at least I got some messages off him saying, "Oh yeah, I like this." I'm not so sure about Ruben. I'm sure I will find out in due course. And now the EP is out on the 28th. It's called Molting. There is a link in this description wherever you're listening to this. There is a link in the description, but you also heard all the socials there. If you want to go and get the new Blurred Reality EP Molting on the 28th, you've heard the lead single, and I can assure you that it is definitely worth picking up. So there's a new band on the scene, not even got their first EP out yet, and I just thought it was really worth giving them a leg up. And the weird thing is that this is going to also kind of be in juxtaposition with the next episode coming up at the end of the month, because this is probably one of the most unknown bands I've ever covered, and probably the biggest interview that I've ever done will be coming up at the end of this month. And those of you who those of you who have been listening and know what I've been up to, you know who is coming up at the end of the month. And for those of you that don't know, feel free to let me know what your guesses are. Join me on social media at Talking Bollocks, or on Instagram at Talking Bollocks, or even on Facebook. Facebook Talking Bollocks is really, really quiet. But whereas Twitter and Instagram seem to be pretty busy. So I'm not quite sure why that is. Let us know if you've got any opinion. Is it, lack of posting by me? Should I set up a Talking Bollocks group on the Facebook? So basically all bollockers can have a pile in and a pile on, discuss any issues that come up on the podcast, or generally, I don't know, slag me off, ask me questions, whatever. Let me know if you would like a group of your own, the Talking Bollocks group, where all bollockers can gather on Facebook and have a right old chinwag. And I will certainly be happy to join in as well. And it gives somewhere for patrons to meet up as well. And God, I can't believe it. I have not mentioned it. What a perfect opportunity. So, God, what am I like? Patreon.com/Howard H. Smith, or look in the description of this podcast and there'll be the phrase support this podcast. It will be highlighted. Click on it and it'll take you straight to Patreon. You get this podcast before everybody else. You get your own podcast, which is questions that you specifically wanted asking of interviewees. They will be just for you, your very own podcast. You get a live podcast on Zoom once a month where we all just hang out, have beers and have a chat. You get a monthly radio show which is 2 hours long. You get classic album breakdowns, where I take a classic album and break it down, exactly what it sounds like. Anyway, all of that for just $6 a month. You are kidding. Or sign up for $5 a month and you don't get the classic album breakdowns or the Zoom. But you can go and sign up. Talking Bollocks, the full Bollocks is the package you're after, but and also all behind the scenes stuff with Acid Rain, etc. You get early merch heads up and early tours heads up and all sorts, and video previews, whatever. Anyway, I've gone on about it long enough. You can join if you wish. I wish you would. But one thing you can all do is share the podcast. Please do. I say it so much. You are the army. You are my best chance. Yeah, you listening to this. Yes, you. Yeah, don't look around at other people. You. Yes, that's right. I'm looking at you. Yes. Please share the podcast with your one fucking friend if that's all you've got. Yeah? Share it with your mum and dad. Share it with your kids. Share it with people you don't like. Share it in groups that have got nothing to do with podcasts or music. Fuck it, seriously. Just post the Talking Bollocks, it's the Podbean website, you know the one I mean, which is basically where you can find every single podcast that I've ever done, is at talkingbollock.podbean.com. talkingbollock.podbean.com. That's in the podcast description anyway. You just click on website and it'll take you there, and just drop that link everywhere, please, just for a laugh, and send me some screenshots or send me some directions so I can go along and like your comment. Just chuck it everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, just for no reason. Yeah, insert yourself into Twitter rows and just throw in the podcast website and check this out. That's it. And just fucking walk away. That honestly, seriously, that would put a massive smile on my face. It would be great to see some of the mischief that you can get into by putting a link to the podcast anywhere you like. Go on, I dare you. Anyway, look, thank you very much. You're still listening. I should let you go, really. I'm sure you've got stuff to do that's way more important than listen to me. So you go and do that. I'll go and do whatever I'm going to do, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks for a huge podcast. Until then, post that bloody website or share Talking Bollocks absolutely anywhere and everywhere. Cheers. Well done. You carried on listening. And here's the bonus, the other single from the EP. This one is called Lost at Sea.